There once was a young man who resided in a little community at the base of a mountain. The village knew the young man for his laziness. While the other villagers labored in the fields and crafts, he would spend his days dozing off beneath the shade of a tree. One day, a wise old monk arrived in the village. He called that young man and said, "My son, I need you to do something. You must ascend to the mountain's top and retrieve a solitary feather from its highest point." The young man exclaimed, "It's impossible," as he gazed up at the peak. "I'm far too indolent to make the entire ascent." "Ah," the monk grinned and said, "you see, the feather I'm looking for isn't actually on the mountain. It's located in a cave on the opposite side of the mountain and can only be accessed by ascending to the top and going around." The boy was interested. The idea of such an unusual assignment piqued his interest, and since he'd never heard of this feather, he decided to accept the monk's challenge. The young man soon found himself out of breath and heavily perspiring because the ascent was difficult and prolonged. But as he continued to ascend, he started to experience a thrill and adrenaline he had never experienced before. He was worn out but ecstatic when he at last arrived at the top. He felt a sense of success he had never had before as he gazed out at the gorgeous scene in front of him. But the true obstacle was still to come. To locate the cave where the feather was allegedly hidden, the young man had to descend the opposite side of the mountain. The young man stumbled and fell numerous times as the descent was far more hazardous than the climb. But he persisted, spurred on by the prospect of the feather lying ahead. And when at last he entered the cave, he discovered the feather lying there, shining in the entrance light. He took up the feather and admired it, but he soon saw that getting back up the mountain to give the monk the feather was going to be difficult. The young man briefly pondered giving up, but then he recalled the sensation of joy and success he had experienced upon reaching the top. He was confident that he had the courage and determination to do it again. So, despite his muscles hurting and his lungs burning, he continued to ascend the mountain. He exerted effort to continue, motivated by the realization that he had succeeded over his own laziness and completed something truly extraordinary. Finally, making it to the target, the young man handed the feather to the monk, to which the monk said, "Well done, my son. You've learned an important lesson today. It is not acceptable or tolerated to be lazy. It is a task that must be met and barricade that must be jumped." The young man nodded, acknowledging the monk's comments as wise. He understood that his laziness had prevented him from accomplishing the tremendous things he had always been capable of. Now that he was confident in his capacity to overcome any challenge in his way and his resolve to do so, the monk's challenge teaches us that idleness is a challenge that must be met and an obstacle that must be jumped over. It is not something that should be accepted or allowed. We uncover a power and resilience within ourselves that we never knew we possessed when we push ourselves to attain our goals, even when they appear unachievable. No matter how challenging they may seem, we must push ourselves and set ambitious goals if we are to overcome laziness. Even when we encounter setbacks and obstacles, we must challenge ourselves beyond our limits. By creating a timetable and following it, we can create discipline and consistency in our daily routines and behaviors. Even when we don't feel like working hard or being productive, we may develop healthy habits that will keep us on task. The development of a growth mindset is another crucial step in overcoming laziness. This entails looking at obstacles and failures as chances for development and learning, rather than as excuses to give up. Ultimately, overcoming laziness requires a willingness to step out of the comfort zone, since growth cannot be achieved in comfort zone. If you like this story, do subscribe to our channel and comment "Overcome Laziness" today.